Hey guys, Manic Mercurian here with another birth chart reading. This one is for Wednesday, July 20th, 1988 at 9:48 p.m. in Avon Park, Florida. And you have Sun in Cancer, very end of Cancer here, Moon in Libra, Aquarius rising. And so the first thing I would notice is this very interesting combination of you having the most emotional sun sign with your Cancer sun, but the least emotional, in my opinion, moon sign with your Libra moon. So there's this interesting dynamic here that you are very sensitive and emotional, being a Cancer, but at the same time, the way you process your emotions is, I think, very different than maybe perhaps the typical Cancer, because you would be much more detached to some extent, and you would also very much think before acting. That's common with all Libra placements, but definitely Libra moon. So you sort of, the way you process your emotions is very intellectual, actually. So um, yes, and this is a theme that is strengthened by other placements in your chart as well. You're primarily watery and airy. So water in your chart would indicate that you're a very emotionally deep person, sensitive, creative, intuitive. And the air in your chart would indicate that you're a little bit light and detached, more intellectual. And combining these two elements together would mean that you have a very vivid imagination and you're very good at understanding complex concepts basically because of that imagination. It would make you very intellectual, but also very emotional. So there's a lot of richness there because you're a very thoughtful person, very logical person, very analytical at times, but you also have this emotional depth as well. Um, let's see, and I think sometimes you might have like delayed reactions to things, delayed emotional reactions, just because of that moon in Libra. Basically, it's also in the eighth house, so it's sort of it's kind of calm or relaxed. It would make you extremely observant, especially of other people. You would definitely be more understanding of other people than they would be of you at times, especially with your sun and success as well. Okay. So Sun and Sixth House Cancer with Moon in Eighth House Libra. This to me would indicate that you're a very modest person, very humble, very observant. And again, you are an expert at psychology. You're good at figuring people out. And you yourself, though, may feel misunderstood at times or awkward. I think people don't always understand you as well as you understand them. Let's see. Oh, but I should mention, so having Sun in Cancer with Moon in Libra, it means that you are very hospitable, very empathetic. You probably, your first instinct or your first thought is about, other people over yourself. So you're a very empathetic person, and you would also be very approachable. Cancers in general are very approachable. They feel familiar to people. They aren't always afraid to be a little bit emotionally vulnerable. And so you'd be very, very approachable to people. People would open up to you very easily. Um, yeah, and again, part of this too is your diplomatic charm or diplomatic. You're naturally kind of graceful in your mannerisms. You'd probably be very polite and very cooperative with other people and very helpful to others. And I guess I don't know, this would be good for like a customer service type of position or I don't know, anything that involves being like really personable or helping others you would be really good at. I know that could be a wide range of things really, but yeah, you have that tendency about you. Um, Also, since you were born with the first quarter moon, it's not exact. It's not an exact aspect, but it is, by sign, it's a first quarter moon, I guess I could say. So this would make you a little bit restless or anxious. But the positive side would be that it would make you more productive as well. You're kind of always changing and working toward things here. Let's see. I think there is a danger of being a little bit complacent, though, at the same time. Cancer and Libra are, um, they're kind of passive signs potentially just because okay, so they're both cardinals, so that means that they both are initiators, but they both initiate in a very indirect way. So you would be an initiator or leader of some sort, but it wouldn't be obvious. I don't think people would always you wouldn't be the first person that people would think of when they think of a leader. However, it's because you lead in a sort of indirect way. You lead through other people. So you kind of, you'd be very good at, like, you have that psychological understanding of people. And so you could be a master manipulator if you wanted to, but it's that same tendency that allows you to be really good at sort of directing people or like nudging people different ways. And I think it's the same thing that allows you to be really nurturing and helpful to other people also allows you to kind of steer them in this or that direction. So this would make you like a really excellent teacher, I think, or trainer, for instance, or it'd make you excellent at, I don't know, directing people, teaching people, coaching, or you'd be a really good counselor, for instance. I know I've said that a lot on these readings, but I think people that are into astrology generally, you know, you have some kind of interest in understanding yourself and self improvement. So therefore, I think there's a common thread that a lot of people that are into astrology would be good counselors because, but you especially would be because you have this really strong combination of being very empathetic and focused on other people, very emotionally nurturing. You have this combination of being, very emotional, but also very intellectual at the same time. So you have that empathy for other people, but you also have that kind of objective realism and that a little bit of detachedness that you can maintain your objectivity to make sure you find a solution to what's going on. And being an Aquarius rising, you would be very like, um, you'd be very, you're very much a problem solver. So you want to fix things and improve things. Aquarius rising would also make you, um, it would make your appearance seem a little bit like modest or uh, understated. But it's this interesting combination of your appearance and your mannerisms and your approach to things would be kind of modest or understated, but it's a little bit quirky or rebellious at the same time. So there's this interesting blend there of conventionalism with a little hint of radicalism, if you will. And this would, blend into your mannerisms as well. So you would be, I think overall combining this with your Cancer placements and your Libra moon, you would be very conforming to some extent with people, but you do have this little um, kind of subtle rebelliousness to you as well. So you have this kind of mix there, if that makes sense. Um, and then Venus and Gemini would also lend itself to your skill with speaking. So this would make you really excellent at speaking, maybe writing as well. You would speak in a way that's easy for people to understand and that's even pleasant to listen to. And it would also just it would make you um, it would just lend a sort of aesthetic or pleasurability. Pleasure, I don't know if that's a word, but it would make your social interactions very pleasant toward other people. So people would enjoy your presence, I think. Especially combining with all these other things I've talked about, that you're very hospitable and easygoing and accommodating. Venus and Gemini would also be what some people would describe as like a slutty placement. Doesn't so my take on it is that it doesn't always necessarily have to be promiscuous necessarily. It's just that romantically and with desires, you would require a lot of stimulation. You would get bored easily, and you would require a lot of variety, a lot of diversity. So that may come through the form of interactions or intimacy with many different people, or it could just come from one person. But that one person would have to be very multifaceted. So I guess I'm getting into relationships here. You would be attracted to someone multifaceted, with different sides to their personality. Someone who is complex, someone intelligent and intellectual, someone who knows a lot about many different types of things or subjects. Yeah, I think that's the gist of it. You do have Mars and Fire as well, and then you have Descendant and Leo. So there's a fire element to your attractiveness or attraction as well. Um, Mars in Aries indicates a high sex drive. Mars is in domicile in Aries, so I think this is a nice mix or a nice addition. Excuse me. With With Sun in Cancer, Mercury in Cancer, Moon in Libra, Aquarius rising, all these placements are very, very empathetic, and so that is, of course, a great thing to have. It's good that you care about other people, but at the same time, it can be a challenge when it's not tempered with awareness of your own boundaries and an ability to defend yourself, basically. So I think at times you could be taken advantage of, especially earlier in life, and, because you would put the well-being of other people before your own, and so you could be easily taken advantage of. That is definitely a theme here. However, this is remedied a little bit by your Mars and Aries. So Mars and Aries to me would suggest that you are capable of defending yourself. When you're in sort of a crisis situation or a confrontation, your first instinct would be to react, very instinctively, very outwardly, and very immediately. And so that would be the typical reaction that would be expected, and it's generally pretty ideal. Mars is in domicile in Aries, so this is an easy, strong placement. It's not something that you have to work very hard to develop. It's easily understood. So when you are pushed, I think you would be very easygoing. I think it would take a lot to get you to this point because you are so I don't know. I want to say like wavering or flexible, adaptable. So it would take you a lot to get to this point. But if people really did push you over the edge and really did, cross a line with you, you would have this kind of fieriness that would emerge, I would think, and that you would kind of snap back in a very immediate way and a very strong, forceful way. So again, this is a really nice placement to have, considering that you have all these other really empathetic, easygoing placements. Mars and Aries, in a chart, if like let's say you had like a super fiery chart or a really otherwise Mars dominant chart, this placement would make you kind of an asshole. But mixing this with all these empathetic placements, I think is a really nice mix, and it kind of gives you um, that fire or that ability to defend yourself, basically. But anyway, back to relationships and romance and sexuality. So it would indicate that you have a high sex drive, and it would also indicate that you're attracted toward people with fire in their charts, or men with fire in their charts. You'd be attracted toward women with air in their charts, like Gemini, but men with fire in their charts, like Aries. And you would have some level of both of these in any attraction to what, regardless of gender. You would want someone intellectual and multifaceted like Gemini, but also someone fiery and confident like Aries. And this is strengthened by your Leo descendant. So I always say descendant is, to me, the most important factor in regard to determining long-term compatibility, especially in partnerships. So in partnerships with your Aquarius rising, you would not be the leader, you would not be the initiator. You, of course, are very easygoing, as I've said, very flexible. So, and especially combining this with your Libra moon, you would prefer people who are more strong-willed in an outgoing way. Not to say that you're not strong-willed, but for you, it's more internal. You're not always the initiator for other people. You yourself can be indecisive because you see things in so many different ways. You're so flexible, and you perceive so much nuance in things, which is really great. Again, that makes you a really good writer. But it's not the best for like asserting, your will, I guess. So anyway, so in relationships, you would prefer someone else to initiate with you. You would want someone very, outgoing, maybe someone charismatic or funny, someone with a really strong personality in a very kind of overt way. These are all kind of traits reminiscent of Leo. So someone who maybe doesn't mind being the center of attention, someone more flamboyant, more charismatic. So this could very, very well be someone with Leo placements. Leo Sun, for instance, would be really great for this, or maybe other strong placements there. But it could also be other fire energies as well. So maybe Aries would really work great with Mars. It would be a little bit of a competitive dynamic, but it would also be very sexual. So that could work to some extent. Sagittarius could work as well, but you have your Saturn there, so it would be more challenging in nature, and they would be more of a teacher to you, and so that would be not as fun for sure. It would be more karmic, and it would maybe help your growth or your evolution, your soul growth. It wouldn't be as fun for you though. It wouldn't be as passionate. So, in terms of attraction, Aries, Gemini, and Leo are all really great. They're signs that you'd be attracted to, but Leo is the most important in terms of long-term compatibility. Now, this is very different than most of the other energies in your chart, as I've described. So I think someone with just overwhelming fire in their chart would not work with you because it's too different than your general nature. So, again, they would be so outgoing and so, like too much fire in a chart can make someone really reckless and spontaneous. They would be very charismatic, but it would be on a shallow level. There would be nothing like substantial there. That's if they're not balanced, I guess. So, someone who is so outgoing and so extroverted, so spontaneous and such, that would be good to some degree, but I think you would also want someone with another element in their chart. Um, as to what that would be, Virgo could be a little bit sexual for you as well, since you have your Lilith there. I think Earth signs would be nice for you, just because you generally lack Earth. You have no Earth planets at all except Jupiter and Neptune. Lilith's not a planet, so yeah. Generally speaking, you do lack Earth. So I think sometimes, especially being an air and water dominant charted person, you would get kind of swept away in your own thoughts and emotions sometimes. So you can kind of like work yourself up, or this same aspect that would be really great for your imagination and your creativity would also result in you not being grounded all the time, not feeling grounded in yourself. And and sometimes you might feel like you lack like a sense of identity. So I think earth signs would be good for you to remedy some of those things and to make you feel more grounded. Earth signs are, of course, grounding and practical, generally speaking. It's the heaviest element, the densest element, so it is. That's why it is so grounding. Kind of so calm, cool, calm, collected, that type of thing. That might work really well. Earth really works well with water, so the heavy emotion that's brought on by your Cancer Sun and Mercury would be very comforted by someone with Earth in their chart because, again, it's just so grounding. You would provide, emotional nourishment or nurturing for that earthy person, and they would provide groundedness, grounding. They would make you feel grounded, basically. So again, that would be Virgo, Capricorn, or Taurus that would provide that for you. Capricorn might be a little confusing for you since your Neptune is there. That might be a little, it might create some kind of confusion or delusion. So maybe not Capricorn so much, but maybe Taurus. You have your Jupiter there, so that would be a really positive connection. Or maybe Virgo with your Lilith there, but Virgo would be potentially more sexual if it is, someone that you're desiring. Someone with maybe like Virgo and Leo placements might work really well, or maybe Taurus and Aries, that could work well too. Um, Air and water might work to some degree as well. I mean, you are kind of well-rounded. You are so airy and watery, so either of those you would get along with just because you would understand them, since that's what you are. So again, I think you have a firm grasp on the elements, but just for anyone who's listening, air would be more light, detached, easygoing. Water would be more heavy and emotional, more sensitive, more creative. So either of those energies would be good for you as well, just because that's what you are. So it'd be easy for you to understand, especially for like friendship. You make friends with air and water signs pretty easily, I would think. Let's see. Okay, Let's talk about your nodes. Okay, so you have South Node and Virgo as well. Okay, so this does change things a lot. It would. I should have looked at this before, but this would actually kind of save your chart to some degree. It would add a lot of like responsibility and groundedness to your chart. So if I can take back a little bit about what I said of that you're so ungrounded, because South Node and Virgo would provide a lot of groundedness for you. You would, even though you lack Earth planets in your chart, the South Node would mean that you are comfortable with, you know, reasoning and analyzing and, being the responsible ones. So doing these kind of mundane parts of life, like taking out the trash and going to work, you would be fine with all that. You're good with all that. You're good with money. You're good with the more practical and again, mundane aspects of life, basically. The thing is, though, you're very good at all those things, but if you dwell too much in physical reality, it would be your downfall. So, so I always say you can keep those skills and attributes that you have from this aspect. You can keep all that, but you just need to incorporate um, also an ability to let yourself relax, basically, and let things maybe not always have to be quantified and controlled. The Pisces North Node indicates incorporating spirituality into the mix, for instance. And this is something that you've probably made progress on by now, but it's just a general theme in your chart that you would start out life being very, again, analytical, intellectual, and kind of controlling everything and quantifying everything, being the responsible one. And as you mature, you would keep those things, but incorporate that that ability to also let things not be always explained or quantified or controlled. So, for instance, I would say like South Node and Virgo, like watching the news would be really bad for you because it's something that you might be comfortable with, maybe, but it's dwelling on mundane reality and too much, I guess. So, like overdoing it would be especially harmful for you. Um, let's see. Okay. So yeah, you are generally really well-rounded because you have that water sun with the air moon. You've got the Virgo South Node, which is Earth, and then Mars is in domicile in Aries. So generally, you have the emotional depth of the Cancer Sun with the quirkiness and detachedness of the Libra Moon, um, and then the pragmaticism of the Virgo South Node, but also a little bit of confidence and outgoingness with the Aries Mars. So generally, you are well rounded, and I think this would further indicate that you are a very agreeable. You would get along with people, from kind of all walks of life. Like you are very easy to get along with. There's many aspects in your chart I think that indicate that, and I think people would feel very comfortable around you. I don't think they would always understand you with your moon in eighth house and sun in sixth house, but they would at least feel like they understand you. They would, and part of this is because with your moon in Libra, I think you would naturally you'd be an excellent chameleon. You'd be good at camouflaging yourself and adapting, molding yourself to the current circumstances, especially socially. So I think people would not always, again, they would feel like they understand you. You would feel so familiar to them. They would just almost assume they know you very well. When in actuality, I think there's a lot of subtlety that people would kind of miss. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Oh, Jupiter at the very end of Taurus would also indicate that you are, very good with money as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting that you have hardly any Earth planets at all, but just Jupiter in Taurus and South Node in Virgo is enough to make you actually pretty grounded and good with like the Earth archetypes, like being responsible and such. Okay, so let's jump around to Saturn. Saturn in Sagittarius would indicate that, especially at a young age, you'd have challenges and you'd be inhibited with things involving like long distance travel or doing anything kind of exotic or exciting or uncontrolled. Having like really really new exciting experiences. Travel would be the biggest one, like long distance travel. Um, but I don't know. Also, anything kind of like outside of your comfort zone. And I think this is a big one for you, especially because you have Sun in Cancer, so you're already naturally drawn toward what is already familiar to you. You like things that are familiar. You might be kind of a homebody. So really getting out of your shell and traveling or trying really new things would be, I think, very, scary or just unwanted for you early on in life. And this would be a challenge because you'd be very limited in your soul growth early on. And I think this is also strengthened by your South Node in Virgo that you want things you would have an initial predisposition toward controlling things and having things be predictable and safe and comfortable, just staying in your comfort zone basically where everything is kind of measured and predictable. You'd be comfortable with that, but in this life you're meant to learn to access to to not just focus on that small bubble, I guess, but to go beyond that, to try new things, to travel far, travel to other countries, like for instance, that would be really great for you. But again, all these things you would embrace more so later in life. Um, and but eventually they would be very good for your soul growth, and they would you're meant to become spiritual in this life, or to become not just like you'd be good at being intelligent in the sense of like kind of being book smart and things of that nature. So again, that's great. You can keep that. But in this life, I think that you're meant to become also very wise or experienced. You're meant to, get out of that shell or that bubble and, travel far, try new things, experience situations where things are kind of uncontrolled or a little bit wild at times. Also ask kind of the bigger questions of life, rather than staying with more detail-oriented facts that your South Node in Virgo and your Moon in Libra would be more comfortable with. But yeah, go into those more controversial or spiritual or philosophical questions. That would all be really, really great for your soul growth. I mean, probably for anyone's soul growth, but yours in particular is very centered around this. And this to me actually indicates that you'd be a leader in these areas later in life, especially after age 29, 30. You'd make a lot of progress here. And then again, in your late 50s as well, you'd make a lot of progress here as well and really become a leader. Um, and you have Saturn conjunct the galactic center. You actually have Saturn and Uranus conjunct the galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius. Okay, this indicates to me a potential for some kind of psychic phenomena or psychic abilities, maybe like very strange dreams or I don't know, psychic abilities, phenomena. But this is something you would not have innately or from a young age. It would be something you have to work for. Um, yes, something that, you'd almost be more shut off to your connection with the universe later in life, but it's something that you would have experiences with, later on. Again, especially around your very late 20s going to your early 30s. 28, 29, 30 especially, you may have some experience where you open up like spiritually or psychically. And then later in life, especially, I think you would realize and become even a leader, perhaps, in terms of this kind of galactic awareness or spiritual awareness. Again, like psychic abilities, maybe. Okay, what else? I think I covered most of what I want to talk about. Um, Let me just make sure. Mercury in Cancer and Sun in Cancer to some extent. We can kind of cut to more basic things here with your general personality. So, um, Mercury in Cancer, I think, is kind of an underrated placement because you would have excellent sort of common sense and intuition. You could kind of just look at a situation or a person and intuitively know your stance about them. I think you would be very open-minded. You'd be open to hearing maybe a different point of view, for instance. But at the same time, you still have that ability to kind of initially judge a situation. I think, of course, you wouldn't always be right. No one can be, but I think you'd be very excellent at this, though. That you can, generally speaking, get that level of insight very intuitively. And it's something that would just kind of come from within. And so I always kind of respect that Cancerian wisdom because it's something that you just have innately. It's not something you have to exert your, energy or your resources on. It's something that you just kind of know things sometimes. You're intuitive like that. Let's see. Just kind of scanning to make sure I covered everything. Oh, you have your IC in Gemini. So this to me, so IC is your childhood and it's in Gemini. So you'd almost be kind of like a Gemini as a child. So maybe someone, very intelligent, and especially combining this with your Virgo South Node as well, you'd be like a very intelligent child. You'd learn very quickly. You'd be very observant. You'd want to be very book smart as a child. So you might like read a lot, for instance. But Gemini IC children are known to be very imaginative and very like chatty, and sometimes they get lonely, so they invent friends. So they're known to have imaginary friends or talk to themselves as well. But the same dynamic that you have with potentially talking to yourself as a child or having imaginary friends, as you get older, it turns into this public persona, which is actually very charismatic. So you have midheaven exactly opposite, of course, in Sagittarius. So this is a really excellent midheaven to have. Midheaven is your career, your public image, is who you are at work or school, etc. Also online. So being in Sagittarius is really excellent because you'd be very charismatic in these situations. You'd be charismatic, and Sagittarius is this blend of emotion with. Mm, Sagittarius is very intellectual, but it's also very emotional, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So that's kind of how you would come across in public, and this would make you an excellent teacher as well. So it's just really nice because it's a very adaptable public reputation profile. Um, it's good for many different things. It would make you sort of entertaining and charismatic, but it would also make you a good teacher. It'd make you good at conveying information, and you have your part of fortune here. So I think there's something really valuable here. The part of fortune is exactly conjunct your midheaven. So okay, so I think there's something really important here, but I need to just kind of combine everything else in your chart to see what that is exactly. So I think you're meant to. You have a great combination of being very empathetic, very understanding of others, but also detached to some extent, problem solving, solution oriented. So I guess maybe you're just meant to combine all of that and put it out there, in this way that's, you have that kind of charisma and that likability to you. So you can use that to get yourself out there and be noticed. So you can basically help others. Um, put your emotional wisdom. What am I trying to say? Emotional intelligence. You can offer that to help other people with their problems, I guess. Or you'd also be a good trainer, conveyor of information as well. Um, oh, midheaven in Sagittarius also indicates a potential for you traveling very far for work, maybe working with people from different customs, different socioeconomic backgrounds, working with people of different cultures or countries or regions, etc. And also maybe traveling to different regions as well. So there's that potential. Oh, and then combining that with something from earlier. So you might not truly step into what you're meant to do as a career till later in life, or um, hopefully I'm phrasing that right. And I only say that because you have your Saturn in the 10th house. Actually, it looks like it's in the 11th house, but it's in the same sign as your midheaven. So, okay. So yeah, this to me would indicate that that same tendency or that same theme of you going toward, being in totally new situations or foreign situations. Um, you're meant to go toward that area, but that is also related to your career as well. So I think the more you learn to embrace the unknown basically, um, and experience new things, that would help to build your career in some way. It would help in your career, or it would lead you to a career or something of that nature. Hopefully that makes sense. That's pretty much the gist of what I see in your chart, I believe. So let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like me to delve into anything further. Um, but this was a beautiful chart to read, very interesting and definitely fun to read. So hopefully that was accurate for you. But at any rate, thank you for the request, and everyone else, thanks for watching. If you would like a reading, you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.